He's adorable. So today I'm here with my August wrap up, and in case you don't want to stick around for the whole video, I will just tell you right now, August was a little bit underwhelming for me. Not gonna lie. In the month of August, I only finished 5 books, and I only had 1 5-star, and it was a reread, so like, I don't really know what that says, except that my reading month was a little bit meh in August. But the good thing is, I also didn't have any like 1 or 2 stars, so this is gonna be a really quick video because I don't have a ton of opinions. So let's just start right in. The first book that I finished in, I almost said November. Why? We're not even close to November. The first book that I finished in August was The Flight Attendant by Chris Bajalian. This was from my TBR Bakery game. It was for an Unhaul Project book. And spoiler alert, you will not see any more books from that Unhaul Project on this list because first of all, the video's not out yet, so I wouldn't want to spoil it. And second, I feel like I kind of slumped in August, so I didn't read anymore for that project yet. That video is coming. I am not gonna give up on it like I have on like every other video project that I've ever done for this channel, but it is coming, just not yet. Hopefully September will be a better month for me. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. We're gonna talk about this book. I gave this book 3 stars. So this book, we are following a flight attendant named Cassie who, at the beginning of the book, she wakes up in a hotel room next to a strange man and he is dead. She is, well, I thought she was going to be an unreliable narrator, but that wasn't necessarily like the main point of this book. It took a little bit of a different direction than I expected it to, and her kind of like binge drinking and partying ways were not the, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like the main compelling, they didn't they didn't propel the story forward. Like, that's not what the story ended up being about. That was not the whole plot of the story. However, this book was really kind of slow in terms of being a thriller. Like, it almost didn't feel like a thriller until the very end, where all of a sudden everything happened all at once. It was super convoluted and confusing, and overall I just didn't love it. I will have more thoughts on this one in that unhaul video, the Simplify the Stacks video, when it comes out, so I won't talk too much on it, but basically it just wasn't really my favorite thriller because it wasn't really thrillery. And like, you would think, so if you're new around here, hi, I'm Sarah, thank you for clicking on this video. I'm not a huge fan of unreliable narrators in thrillers. I don't like when the whole story depends on the fact that we don't know what's going on because the main character doesn't know what's going on. She technically didn't know what was going on, but it was more about her lying for the sake of lying, and some of the lies that she was telling didn't even make sense. And also she was, it's almost like the author knew and was like, yeah, but, and he had Cassie give a reason for telling a lie even if she didn't need, like, even though it didn't make a difference whether she lied or told the truth. And I just didn't like that. It didn't work for me. 3 stars. It wasn't terrible. I did listen to it on audio, so it didn't take a lot of time for me to get through this one. It's okay. You might like it if you like thrillers that aren't really thrillers. You know, I actually don't know who to recommend this book to, so we'll just move on. Next, I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. I had this book from the library, so I will just put a picture here. I had to return it, but this one I gave 4 stars. It was the perfect book for fall. I know it's not necessarily fall yet, but, or at least especially not when I read it. Like, I know a lot of people consider it fall now, like, you know, but when I read it in August, it was definitely not fall. But it was the perfect book to kind of start to get me into that fall mood. It was super cute. It was a small town in New England, I believe Maine, if I had to guess. It was called Dream Harbor, which makes me think of Bar Harbor, which is Maine. So like, I don't know if that's necessarily what it was supposed to be, but it was definitely New England. It was small town. It was cafe slash bakery vibes, which you know I love. And it was just super cute. But the thing about this book that kind of threw me off a little bit is it was very cute and cozy and like whatever until you got to like 75% of the book, and then it was like all spice. Not all spice, because we're talking about bakery, like not the spice, like all spicy scenes for like the rest of the book. And at that point, because it had been so long of reading this like super cozy book, for it to all of a sudden just be spice was a little strange. It was a little jarring. That being said, again, I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great book, and it was perfect for like the start of fall, getting you into those cozy vibes. But also, it takes place, I believe, in October, so it will be perfect anytime during fall. So if you haven't picked it up yet and you like those kinds of like cozy but spicy types of books, I would definitely recommend it. You should check it out. Did I tell you anything about what the book was actually about? No. Do I remember what the book was about? No. Basically, don't read it for the plot, read it for the vibes. It's definitely like fall vibes. If you want fall vibes and you like small town romance with some spice, it's your book. Next, I read The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. This I read for Genreathon because we were supposed to read a classic, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what it was. And, oh, it was a required reading book because the theme was like back to school. That's what it was. I had never read this book before. It was not required reading in my school. This one was a little tough for me. What did I give it? I gave it 4 stars, but I like the idea of it. I like the fact that, like, at the beginning of the version that I read, S.E. Hinton, like, was saying, there was, like, a foreword by S.E. Hinton where she was saying, like, I wrote this book as a teenager for teenagers because this kind of thing didn't exist at the time. And I do appreciate that. That being said, okay, so I know a lot of you guys said that you absolutely love this book, so I don't want you to take this the wrong way, and I definitely want you to remember that I still gave it 4 stars. I'm not a fan of that time period, that kind of like 60s, like 50s, 60s. They're called greasers, but I just think of it as like greasy, like the slicked hair and like that kind of thing. The movie Grease, I enjoy the movie. I hate the setting and the time period. If that movie could have taken place in any other time period, I would have liked it a lot more. Like, I'm sorry. I know I'm probably offending a ton of you right now, but like, I just don't like that time period. And so like, you have the greasers and the Socs, and they're like getting in fist fights and like getting in all kinds of fights and everything. And I'm just like, this would be so fun if it took place in any other time period that I cared about. Again, that being said, I did enjoy the book. I enjoy what the book represented. And overall, I think the story was good. I also can't relate to being a 14-year-old in a gang. So maybe I'm not the target audience. Maybe I would have liked it more if I had read it when I was younger, although even when I was younger, I was not a huge fan of that time period, so I don't know if I would have. But just in general, I think the messaging is good, like, not like the gangs, but like coming together, like acknowledging your differences and realizing that you aren't that different. Like, we're all just kids trying to make it in this big world. At least that's what I took from it. I don't know, like, I might be completely wrong on that. Like, I'm not, I will be the first person to admit I'm not a super critical reader. So if that is not the messaging of the story at all, like, don't mind me, that's just what I got from it. But yeah, so like, I liked it, I enjoyed it. I think it was well written, especially for the fact that it was written by a 16-year-old. I don't like the time period. So that's all it was. The book itself, the story, great. The book, great. The messaging, great. The idea that it was written by a teenager for teenagers, great. I just wish it hadn't taken place in like the 60s. So 50s, 60s, sometime in there. But that's personal preference. That's just me. So, you know, take my opinion with a grain of salt, obviously. Next, I read The Cybernetic Tea Shop by Elizabeth Katz. I gave this 3.5 stars, and here's the thing. I think I just don't love short stories or like novellas, because I have the same complaint about this one that I have about every single other short story or novella that I read, and it's that I wish it was longer. Like, I want it to be more fleshed out, more detailed. So in this story, we are following, what is our main character's name? I don't remember. Clara? Cara? That's probably completely wrong, but I'm not going to look it up right now. We are following our main character, who is kind of a, do I want to say a vagrant? Is that the word I'm looking for? Transient? She just like moves from place to place. She doesn't want to be in one place for too long. She gets bored, she gets tired, she wants to move on. So at the beginning of the book, she's in one location. She's basically telling her boss and her friends, like, hey, I'm out, like, I need to move on. And then she moves on to Washington, I want to say, Seattle. And one of her coworkers at her new job is basically like, hey, there's this cool cafe, like, you should go. It has like a robot that runs it, and you would think that was super cool. So she goes to this cafe, this tea shop, if you will, and she ends up striking up a kind of relationship with the owner, the robot that runs this cafe, who is named Sal, and I remember that because her name is actually Sarah. Then it goes to Sally and then shortened to Sal. That's why I remember that. The other girl, I don't remember. Cara, Clara, Becca, I don't remember. It's something. I really want to say Clara, but I don't think that's right. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But basically, Sal has been running this tea shop since her first owner, like the woman who bought her and had her help, like, start helping to run this tea shop, passed away. And she had made a promise to this woman, who she was also in love with, that she would run the store, the tea shop, until it's at least 300 years old. Like, it would make it to 300 years under her care. And where we're at, it's at like 240 or 250 or something, like somewhere around there. And it's just kind of falling into shambles and disrepair, I guess. Just because she keeps getting, like, it keeps getting ransacked and attacked by people that don't think that a robot who is technically considered like old technology at this point, should be running it. Like, they don't want her running it. They don't want her owning a business, that kind of thing. And so I think that's as much as I really want to tell you, because it is a short story. It's only, I think, like 115 pages long or something. It was good. For what it was, I enjoyed it. I just wish it was longer. I wish there was more character development. I wish the two main characters' relationship had developed more. And honestly, like, the whole vibe of the story was just a little bit depressing. And I think it was supposed to be more, I don't think it was supposed to be uplifting necessarily, but I don't think I was supposed to leave the story feeling depressed, which is what happened. So, like, it was just kind of a downer. It was just kind of a bummer, is what I'll say about that. So, it's good. Would I recommend it? If you're having a bad mental health day, probably not. If you're feeling okay mentally, maybe you might enjoy it. If you like sci-fi and like tea shops and whatever. I guess I expected it to be more cozy, and it just ended up being less cozy and more of a bummer. So 3.5 from me. And then the final book that I actually finished in August was The Woman Who Rides Like a Man by Tamora Pierce. This is book 3 in the Song of the Lioness Quartet. This is a reread. I've talked about this series a bunch of times. One of my favorites from when I was a kid. I absolutely love this series. I've reread it a bunch of times, and I just really love it. I also realized I feel like I am repeating myself. I don't know when I said this. It's probably going to be in another video coming up at some point. But I love this because basically reading this, it is going to be in a video coming up, so I won't go too much into it. But while I was reading this book, I realized that this is where my love of anti-hero kind of characters comes from. Like, my love of characters kind of like Rhysand, Aaron Warner, Xaden, like that kind of character, even Rain from Serpent and the Wings of Night, that character archetype, this is probably what inspired my love of that kind of character, because George Cooper is nothing if not a lovable kind of bad guy. So that's probably where that love stemmed from. If you don't know what this is, the first book is Alana the First Adventure, and in that book we are following Alana, who disguises herself as her brother so that she can go into like a knight training program and become a knight, because that's all she's ever wanted, and in that world women are not allowed to be knights. So cute. Love it. Definitely recommend it if you have any love for like middle grade or like young teen. Well, some of the themes in this book get a little bit older. It does say teen fantasy, so I don't even know what age group that is aimed at, but I read it when I was a kid and I turned out fine, sort of. So I think anybody can read it from like young teen and up. So I love it. I recommend that series to everyone. It's one of my favorites still to this day, no matter how many times I've read it. And yeah, so that's the last book that I actually finished. I gave that 5 stars because love it. You don't have to move. You can stay. Oh, he cuddled in farther. I love him. But then I have quite a few books that I like started and read some of and just didn't finish. So I'm gonna go into those really quickly and then we will be done. So the first one is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book after The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I didn't read very much of this. I only read 50 pages or something. 40 pages. Also, can I just show you? My husband got a 3D printer recently, and one of the first things he did was 3D printed me a little heart bookmark, and I just think that is the cutest thing ever. I absolutely love it. Like, he bought an entire roll of the pink filament just to make me my little heart bookmark that I absolutely love. So, haven't gotten very far in that, was enjoying it, will continue at some point. You know, it is what it is. Also, I read, I think, about 50. I keep wanting to say 50 pages, but then my bookmark's only at page 30, so I don't know. Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. Again, I'm enjoying this. I don't know why I didn't pick it up more. I think I was in a little bit of a slump, honestly, so, but that's really good. I love Sarah Addison Allen's writing. She has just like a little bit of magical realism, or like, I don't even know if you would necessarily call it magical realism, but there's just like a little touch of magic in all her books. And I love it. It's so cute. I listened to like 2% of the Shadow Rising audiobook. Still not finished. I'm at, I think, 68% now. 66 or 68%. I'll finish it eventually, just it didn't happen in August. And then Not Britt Marie Was Here, but this is kind of a stand-in for My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Bachman, which I have since finished, but at the end of the month, in my TBR video for September, I said I would finish it by the end of August. It didn't happen. I just finished it in September, but I read most of it in August. And in that book, we are following Elsa, who is a seven-year-old girl who just lost her grandmother, and her grandmother left her kind of like a letter scavenger hunt where she had to deliver letters to people from her grandmother, in which her grandmother apologized for certain things that happened in life. In true Frederick Bachman fashion, it was just like a very beautifully woven together story where everything, this one was a little bit different in that everything was connected already. Like, you could tell that everything was connected, especially like at the very least by the grandmother and these letters. But by the end of the book, you got more dimension to it, and like things were more connected than you even realized going through the story. I did give this book 4 stars just because I've given the other 2 Frederick Bachmans that I read, I gave 5 stars. So I'm a little surprised that I gave this one 4 stars, but it was just like slightly too whimsical for me. And I think that's just because we were following a 7-year-old. So just in general, she had a big imagination. She went to this place called the world of Almost Awake with her grandmother. Like that was their like magical world that they used to go to, or like imaginary world, I guess. And so it was just a little bit too whimsical for me. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood for whimsy. I have no idea. Or maybe I'm just a miserable person that doesn't like that kind of thing. But it just didn't quite work for me as well as the other two Frederick Bachmans that I've read, but I did still really enjoy it. However, the thing that really, really, really made me like, no, 4-star, it's not getting any more than a 4-star, is kind of a spoiler, so I'm not actually going to tell you, I'm sorry. But there's one thing that happened in this book that if you've read it, I'm sure, well, I'm not sure, but I hope you know what I'm talking about. I just wasn't okay with it. It made me really sad and I did not like it. So that one got 4 stars and that's okay. Not every book has to be a 5-star. I still love Frederick Bachman. I still intend to read everything he's ever written. And I believe my next one will be Britt Marie Was Here, because Britt Marie was a side character in My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. So with that, that is everything that I read in the month of August, I believe. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. I have my reading journal here, but August was a weird month for me and like I didn't really do a very good job of keeping up with my reading journal. So hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. That is gonna do it for this video. It did get longer than I expected it to, but that's gonna do it for August. That's a wrap on August. We are now thoroughly and completely into September and working on Magical Readathon, and it's a good time. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you have similar or differing opinions than I did about them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.